right, good morning, everybody. Just give me a thumbs up. Let me know you can hear me okay. Sound all right? Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, Marley. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. You can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And keeping the palms joined. All right, putting the palms down. And again, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. I always like to start out with a question, just to give a little bit of time for people to settle in before the meditation and give some time for, excuse me, those of you to just share, communicate a little bit. And let's see, question this morning. Let's see. What is your biggest challenge right now? I'll give you maybe a little more or better parameters, or yeah, let's do looking at the Parmitas, the 6 Parmitas of generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. Which is your greatest challenge right now? And feel free to type as little or as much as you'd like. If you're new to joining us, again, welcome. There's a chat box there on the screen. Feel free to type in there. Again, your greatest challenge at this moment: generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, or wisdom. I'll type that in here. Greatest challenge at this moment. Out of generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, or wisdom. So what is your greatest challenge at this moment out of generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, or wisdom? So there's the question for you. For those who aren't familiar with these practices, these are what's referred to as the 6 Parmitas. The 6 Parmitas translates to perfection. These are, in theory, not meant to make you feel as you must be perfect, but these are 6 practices to work on as you cultivate kindness and compassion throughout your days. So the 6 teachings are what's used in what's called the Bodhisattva practice. Bodhisattva means enlightened being. And the idea behind the Bodhisattva practice is that your vow is to be reborn life after life until all beings are free from suffering. And that you use these practices to go from samsara, the cycle of rebirth and suffering, to nirvana, liberation, freedom from suffering. So there's a metaphor often of using them as you would a raft to get to the other shore. And then when you get to the other shore, the practice is to not just take off, but to turn around and to come back. So for me, I've looked at, with everything in the Buddhist teachings, I look at the teaching of rebirth, reincarnation as a moment to moment, or I think for me, more practically, a day to day practice, in that the vow each day is that as you work on generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom, that you do that throughout your day. And then when the day is done, you hopefully go to sleep and then wake up, and that is your vow again, that you continue to practice these six teachings in effort to cultivate your own bodhicitta or Buddha nature, but also to then share that with others. For me, I've found these practices to be an incredible motivation and inspiration to realize that if I bring these practices into my life and into the life of those around me, then it benefits other people. So that's, to me, the heart of the Bodhisattva practice is, what are you doing throughout your day that benefits others? So just some thoughts on that. There's a balance, of course, the middle path of recognizing that you can't burn yourself completely from a mental, emotional, physical health standpoint. You need to be able to sustain yourself to be able to be there for others. But there's also a balance of recognizing that you're caring for others while you're caring for yourself. So, all right. So the comments coming in, I'll share for those who maybe are not able to see them for some reason. Again, the question, if you just joined us, is what is your greatest challenge at this moment out of generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, or wisdom? Marisa says patience. Bill, all six are challenging, but my greatest struggle is patience, I think. And hard to choose, but patience, well, there you go, 3 for 3. Benton, wisdom to understand the impermanence of life, like your health, your relationships, your loved ones, etc. Yeah, I mean, they're all tough, but that specifically, to have the wisdom to understand impermanence is, if you can master that, then you'll be golden, my friend. Cynthia, yeah, patience. So we have a lot of patience, a lot of people being challenged with patience, which would make sense really at all times. Would make sense, especially at a time like now where we're challenged with the everyday life, and then on top of that, dealing with the pandemic and all the struggles that come along with that. So difficult time. Any other thoughts on what your challenges are before we start the meditation practice? I hear people a lot talking about concentration. And, the Six Parmitas, I'll just share this briefly. They all really feed off of each other. But if you, especially for those who shared that patience is your biggest challenge, think about concentration for a minute, within a context or in relationship to patience, right? So one, for me, simple way to look at patience is our inability to stay in the present moment. We want things to happen quicker or better or different. We're stressed out about the future. So we lack patience because we want to know what is going to happen in the future. And there's a billion variations of that, but that's just one simple way to look at it. from my lens. So if you bring concentration into your practice and you recognize that all you can do in that moment is be in that moment, then it helps with patience, right? So for all of us here, there might be lots of things in the future that we're worried about. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how to deal with it. We want answers immediately. The practice now is to just be here with this moment, sitting, doing a meditation practice, and not trying to problem solve or figure anything out. So when we can cultivate a deep level of concentration in this moment, it really helps in addressing our inability to, or our challenge, I should say, with being patient. So to sum that up, I think it helps when we are struggling the most with one paramita to look at another one and how it can actually help, because you can really break down all of them to feed off of each other. So, all right, so with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. There's a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You won't float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. You won't figure anything out whatsoever. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit and breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, outside, wherever you are. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. So posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, it helps slide into the front third. Allows the back to straighten, relaxing the shoulders. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continuing this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought, return to breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments, just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought. each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day, and recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's not from anything I said. It's not from how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply for all of us, is every moment of our lives, things happen and we react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. And for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy, not necessarily fun. But meditation is free, Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, say, and do. And that's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, hoping this happens, hoping that happens, wishing this would happen, wishing that would happen, we spend so much time trying to control what is out of our control. This also ties back to the practice of patience. It's really linked to very heavily our desire and craving to want to control the outcome of situations. And when we don't have the ability to control things, we have a very difficult time finding patience, because we want things to be a certain way. And as we find out on a day-to-day basis, life doesn't go how we want. Sometimes they're small challenges and difficulties and hurdles that really don't mean much in the grand scheme of life. And sometimes there are very large challenges and difficulties that are very heavy and very emotional. But all of those, regardless of what end of the spectrum it's on, has a lot to do with our, again, desire and craving and effort to try to control outcomes. And a big practice for me, someone who grew up trying to control everything and was really good at it, was learning to surrender that control. Just focus on what you can do in each moment. And that creates the future anyways. And things that are out of our control, which are most things, we have control over our thoughts, our words, our actions, and that impacts our life. So gaining control of your thoughts and words and actions is very important. But letting go of this idea that we can control things that really are out of our control is where the major struggle is for most people. So it is surrendering to always endless gratitude, appreciation, and kindness to each moment as it arises, and being with it as it is, no matter how painful or joyful it is. So that's the practice. I think I'll pause there. Just turn over to questions. For those who are joining us for the first time, welcome. There's a chat box on your screen there somewhere, most likely. Feel free to type in. I always prefer to just respond to questions that you have around meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. So feel free to share your thoughts or questions and I'll respond. Let's see. Anne. Good morning, Anne. I have been trying to be more in the present and realize that I rarely am. I'm thinking about the past or the future, daydreaming or distracting myself. Any suggestions? Yeah, it's I'd love to say that this is a simple one, but as you know, it's not. And I'd love to say, here's my suggestion, and that's going to make it better. But it's not always that way. The first step, which is a very, I think, great and it's just a great realization, is to very honestly recognize that, wow, I am rarely in this present moment. That's the first step. Now, of course, that doesn't solve your difficulties, but I share this not just for you, but really as a reminder for everybody here that don't be in denial at how terrible we are at staying in the present moment. Don't fool yourself into thinking that just because you meditate that means you're being present, or that you're, having success at being present, right? You could be sitting here meditating and your mind will be everywhere. And so while your body is physically present, your thoughts and emotions are not. They're lost. And that's basically what you're describing, Anne, is that rarely are we in the present moment, regardless of what we're doing. So, and this one might throw you off a little bit too. I don't necessarily find for many people that meditation is a good practice for learning to stay in the present moment. Because all of you ask yourselves honestly, for the last 20 minutes that we did the meditation, out of those 20 minutes, how often were you actually focused on your breath? I don't want answers to that. Just ask yourself that question. All right. It's a fun question I ask kids, how long did you stay focused on your breath? And, they'll say, 7 minutes or whatever, So I won't torture adults by asking adults to do that. But for the 20 minutes that we did meditation, how long were you actually focused on breath? And how long were you thinking about everything else that's going on in your life? As you say, Anne, thinking about the past or the future, daydreaming or distracting. So most people for 20 minutes spent probably about 18 minutes with a wandering mind and 2 minutes of trying to stay present on the breath. So now that I've kind of set the table for that, I just wanted to share some insight into why I think that meditation isn't necessarily the best practice for learning to stay present, because you're not doing anything. And when we're not doing anything, our mind is going to wander and race. So in many ways, seated meditation is one of the most difficult ways to practice learning to stay present. And it's a big thing that, I don't know, frustrates or annoys or whatever word is, but it bothers me that there's so many people who lead meditation thinking that if you're just sitting and breathing, that you're like fully present, because you're not. So back to your question, as far as any suggestions, do things. One example just popped into my head was chewing gum is a present moment experience. Any sort of eating is an opportunity to have present moment experience. A conversation and actually listening to the words that are being said is an opportunity to practice. In Zen practice, it's often written as present time awareness. Present time awareness. Aware of the present time, the present moment. Be aware of what's happening in this moment. All of the thoughts you're having about the past or the future, daydreaming or distracting. And Anna, this is a great question, because I guarantee every single person that's with us this morning can benefit from this. All of our thoughts are constantly wandering. So when we are in conversation with somebody, if we're actually listening, as opposed to thinking about what our response is going to be, or judging what we're hearing, or creating another story around what we're hearing, then we're not actually paying attention to the present moment. So physical, tangible things, eating, walking, talking, these things that we do every single day, these are ways to practice learning to stay present. Physical pain sucks. And it is also an incredible reminder of the present moment. In this moment, I am in pain. I want to add that I think the difficulty or challenge people have is they read some stuff, they think if they meditate and they look a certain way when they're meditating, that all of a sudden they're present and everything is going to be fine. And that's nonsense. The present moment will suck, but it's present. The first thing the Buddha taught, life is filled with suffering. But all of a sudden we pick up some, gentle Buddhist book and we do a meditation practice and we think very often, well, if I just meditate, everything's going to be okay. And if I just think pleasant thoughts, everything's going to be okay. Things are not always what we call okay. They suck. That's what the Buddha said. Life is dukkha. It's filled with dukkha. Life sucks. It's also filled with plenty of joy, plenty of happiness, plenty of memories and history, right? And without getting into too many specifics, but for those of you with us this morning that are facing incredible challenges right now or incredible losses right now, the moment right now that sucks, that is the dukkha, that's the moment that we're in. And all the meditation in the world doesn't fix that. All the Buddhist teaching in the world doesn't fix that. It makes us realize this is what's happening right now. This is what the Buddha said. Life is suffering. But it is also filled with, as I started to say, so many joyful memories, so much history, so many incredible experiences, so many highs, so many lows. This is life. This is the experience. As I often say, Buddhism doesn't solve problems. It makes us see things for what they really are. Or it doesn't make us see things. It hopefully helps us see things for how they are. And in that moment, we become present with what's actually happening. So, short question, long response, but I hope that's helpful. All right. Cynthia, thank you. I'm going to share what you wrote for anyone who might not be able to see the chat here. Thank you for every word this morning. As husband faces cancer treatment, I am challenged to accept this moment. You reminded me the practice is accepting this as life, suffering, accepting. And yeah, Cynthia, it goes without saying, how I feel. Any words I could share personally, you already know. But on a practice perspective, yes, it is embracing what's happening, because the lack of acceptance or the resistance to it, then we get wrapped up in the emotions that are separate from what's actually happening. What's actually happening is your husband is facing cancer treatment. That's the truth. Now, any anger, any frustration, any anxiety, any fear, any worries that you have around that truth will make it more challenging for you and your husband to be in that moment together. All the questions of why or what if, or if we had done this, or if he had done that, or how did all of those questions that you'll want answered don't typically help. And moments like this are, as you say, the last two words, suffering and accepting the fact that life is filled with suffering, and embracing it as best as you can, which is not easy. Bill, all right, quote from the movie Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Embrace the suck and move the F forward. Yeah, that's kind of it. It's it, like I said, it doesn't do us any good to resist it. It just makes it harder, and it's hard enough already dealing with moments like this in our lives. So, and actually, that's funny, Cynthia, you share that, because I haven't seen the movie, and the only way I've seen the quote is the Cubs, and I'm a big baseball fan, and the years recently that the Cubs were very good and won the World Series. Their head coach Joe Madden, who's I think he's a total Zen Buddhist, definitely an old hippie dude, and they would create shirts for the team, the guys to wear, and they were pretty random, motivational, inspiring things. And one of the shirts he had them all wear was "Embrace the Suck," and I never knew that was coming from the movie. So, thanks for sharing that. All right, other thoughts or questions? Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with? We'll do one more question before we wrap up here. We should accept, embrace the suck, but also try to reduce the suck for ourselves and others with right action, correct? So, give me a second here. I wouldn't combine those two. So your question of embrace it, but also try to reduce it. It's not this linear thing that, right action isn't going to reduce how painful a situation is. So directly, I would say no. That's to answer your question. I would say it's not correct. Practice right action simply to practice right action and see how that impacts your life. Right action, for those who don't know, looking at the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths. The first one is life is suffering. The second one is the cause, the three poisons: greed, anger, ignorance. We practice generosity, compassion, wisdom to overcome them. The third noble truth is the ending of suffering, nirvana, liberation. And the fourth is the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is working on having correct views, thought, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. So the question is around, is right action a way to reduce what sucks? It not necessarily, again, because the challenge we face present, moving forward, which is all we can do, is to create right action in each moment. But that right action that you create in each moment doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make something that sucks better. So, as you share, it sucks that some kids are hungry, but we can feed them with compassion. Um, Again, if kids are hungry and you have compassion and you feed them, yes, that's a right action to take. It helps to feed them in that moment. But you're also looking at it from this lens that says, well, they're hungry. I have food. I'm going to give it to them. And then they're no longer hungry. They're going to be hungry the next day. For people who are living without food, just because you practice compassion and give them a meal doesn't mean they're not going to be hungry the next day. It doesn't mean you should not do it. But I don't like to look at the practice as such a simple, cut and dry, if I have right action, that is going to take away everything that sucks. So at times it will be helpful, and at times we have to remember that what sucks and is painful to deal with and what hurts right now, having right action going forward doesn't always fix that. So yeah. And I'll just share this thought as I close. I worked probably 20 years ago, but for many years I've worked with the homeless population in various capacities. And with Temple, we've had a food distribution program which tends to feed people on the streets downtown San Diego, many of them without homes, without a roof over their head. Scott Silverman, who was the founder of Second Chance, which is an incredible program that has done a lot of work with the homeless and prison reentry folks. In brief, they would run I don't know what it's like now, but back then it was, I think, a 3-week job readiness training program, and help reduce recidivism rate and help people get jobs and take care of themselves. So he has devoted probably the last 30 years of his life to helping the homeless. And to this day, he'll tell you the last thing he'll give them is a meal. Now, I'm not saying that I prescribe to this. I'm just sharing a different view, right? Obviously, we prepare meals when Temple's open every week, and we feed homeless people, and I'm a big fan of us doing that. But I want to share another view, which I think has a lot of wisdom to it. Again, he has all the compassion in the world, working with homeless 30 plus years, and done probably more to help homeless population in San Diego than most people. And he'll always say, I'm not going to give them food. Because his belief and view, from my understanding back then, was that as long as he continues to give them food, they're going to continue to not learn to provide food for themselves. So he gave them opportunities to get jobs so they could have food and shelter with the work that they were doing. And I think that's a beautiful practice. So always keep in mind that what we read around Buddhist stuff is very hard to think that you're going to get these like concrete definitions of how everything is supposed to be. Buddhism is not, and I don't mean this in any offensive way towards the Bible, but Buddhist practice and the Buddhist teachings is not like the Bible, where people who view the Bible and say this is the word of God or the word of Jesus and this is the law. It's not that way. I think Buddhist teachings can be very fluid. All right, so I'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. And to Cynthia and Marisa and all the others who are facing so many challenges and difficulties in their lives right now, may you all be free from suffering. May your loved ones be free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right. Thanks all for being here this morning. Just a couple quick announcements. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up the temple 14 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. So thanks for showing up. We have classes every night, every morning. As most of you know, we closed March of 2020, so about 14 months ago. Due to the pandemic, we closed. We are still closed. We don't have any plans of reopening yet. We very much enjoy feeling that we're getting closer to opening, but it's not happening yet. So we figure if we waited 14 months, we can wait a little bit longer. So everything is virtual. All the classes, YouTube or Zoom, recovery classes, the kids' classes, book studies. So everything is going online. Let's see what else. Out of the ordinary, still just our newer programs. On Sunday nights, we have a Tibetan practice of sending and receiving the Tonglen meditation. You can go to the website and put in any kind of prayers or well wishes you want us to send to anybody. And Monday nights, Ken is doing the book studies and Seeds. Buddha for You also still closed, but if you need anything, you can use the online store there. The book, Zen Seeds, you can get there, or anything else you need. That's about it. And Benton, I see your comment here. To all those mothers out there, happy Mother's Day tomorrow. The Bodhisattva Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is beyond gender in consciousness, but her name means hearer of the world's cries. And Kuan Yin hears all the suffering and pours out compassion to heal. So very often on Mother's Day, Kuan Yin is highly revered as this be-all compassionate being, like a mother to a child. So to all you Bodhisattva Kuan Yins out there, all you mothers, happy Mother's Day. I wish you well, and we'll see you soon.